How's it going, everyone? This is the George here, and today I'm going to be reviewing a video game, not a movie this time. And since it's been 20 years since this game has come out, and I know on ZeldaDungeon.net they were celebrating the 20th anniversary of this game, even though this game came out earlier in 2003. I'm going to be reviewing Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker. That's right, I'm going to be reviewing one of my all-time favorite Zelda games, one of my favorite games to play. And this is the GameCube version. I never played the Wii U version. But even though it's the GameCube version, this is a game that I love playing annually. I like to play this game a lot. It's the Zelda game that I've replayed the most. And this wasn't the first Legend of Zelda game that I owned. The first one that I did own was the Legend of Zelda Collector's Edition, which had Legend of Zelda, The Adventures of Link. By the way, I meant the first Legend of Zelda game ever made. When I said Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time, and Majora's Mask. But I kind of struggled playing those games, and because that's when I got my GameCube, I had gotten other GameCube games around the same time that I was playing as well, like Luigi's Mansion and Scooby Doo Night of 100 Frights. So I didn't really have time to play all the Zelda games that were on there, and there were certain times where I was stuck on certain levels on some games, so I never really progressed. The one thing I would always go back and play, though, was the 20-minute demo of Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker. There was a demo where you get to play 20 minutes of Wind Waker, and you can either play in the dungeon, which was the Dragon Roost Caverns, the first dungeon, the Forsaken Fortress, or on Windfall Island. And so, even though I never really progressed a whole lot in those 20 minutes, I had a fun time playing them. I loved playing the first dungeon. I loved going through the Forsaken Fortress, even though the stealth can get annoying, and I'll get more into that later in the video. And adventuring through the Windfall Island town. But it always frustrated me because those 20 minutes would then be up, and I go back to the opening of Wind Waker. So eventually, I got The Legend of Zelda: Wind Waker. We got it. I think it was a pre-owned version. The thing is, I ripped the thing off, but we got this at GameStop. I got it for my birthday, and this is the first Zelda game that I played nonstop. I would, even if I was stuck on a certain temple or a certain quest or portion of the game, I would just keep playing. I would do a side quest while I was stuck and try to go back to what I was doing. And it took me a while because, as I said, I wasn't the best gamer as a kid. It's kind of, whenever I play Wind Waker now, it's amazing like what things I sometimes will get stuck on. And I was like, I can't believe I got stuck on that as a kid. But I finally completed it, and it was completing Wind Waker that pushed me to go complete Ocarina of Time, then Majora's Mask, and then later buy other Zelda games such as Twilight Princess, Phantom Hourglass, and others that have come out since then. So Wind Waker is the game that made me fall in love with the Zelda franchise. So as far as Wind Waker goes, I'm going to say the summary on the box. So an evil wind is rising. Legend has it that whenever evil has appeared, a hero named Link has risen to defeat it. That legend continues on the surface of a great and mysterious sea as Link sets off on his most epic and awe-inspiring adventure yet. Aided by a magical conductor's baton called the Wind Waker, he will face unimaginable monsters, explore puzzling dungeons, and meet a cast of unforgettable characters as he searches for his kidnapped sister. So, the general consensus of Wind Waker, besides what I just said on the box, is that it's Link's birthday. He's on Outset Island, and it's been hundreds of years since Hyrule Castle appeared. This takes place during the adult timeline of Ocarina of Time after Link defeats Ganondorf. And it's peace times, and Link is of age, and he wears the hero's clothes despite looking miserable. But when a giant bird kidnaps a pirate named Tetra, who leads her group of pirates, and Link saves her after she falls in the woods on his island. His sister Errol gets kidnapped by the giant bird, and this bird has been kidnapping girls with pointy ears because, as revealed later in the game, Ganondorf runs the Forsaken Fortress. He has come back, and he is looking for Princess Zelda. So Link, with the help of Tetra, goes to the Forsaken Fortress, but it doesn't work the first time. He gets taken by the bird, the Hemlock King, and he is thrown miles away. But the King of Red Lions, a talking red boat, helps Link, and together they go on a quest to find items that will help Link save his sister and eventually get the Master Sword. And so Link once again goes back to the Forsaken Fortress, and Tetra once again helps him. And while Link is able to save his sister and defeat the giant bird once and for all, he finds out that the Master Sword has lost its power, and it's discovered that Tetra is actually a descendant of Princess Zelda. And so Link has to go on a quest to once again get the new sages at the temples to unleash the power of the Master Sword, go and save Zelda when Ganon kidnaps her, and then eventually Link stops Ganondorf. So this is a game that has a lot of side quests, that has an open world. This is the Great Sea. You're traveling by boat instead of by horse or by foot, as shown in Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time. And I will be honest, sometimes the sailing can get a bit boring. Sometimes there's never a whole lot to do, and sometimes you have to wait to get certain items to do more on the Great Sea or on certain islands. There's a lot of islands on this game, but you can only progress to certain islands if you have certain items. For example, once you get the bombs, you can turn the bombs into a cannon when you're on the King of Red Lions, as well as look for treasure with the grappling hook once you get the grappling hook. But there's some islands where you're going to need the bombs, so once you get the bomb bag, you can progress on those islands, but until then you can't really do anything. Some islands you have to wait until around the end of the game. For example, you get the hook shot in the second to last dungeon, the Wind Temple, and you need that to get on certain islands or to get into certain caves on some islands. So you have to wait until later in the game to get on those islands or caves. But despite that, I like the utilization of the items. I like how even though you're sailing, you can use most of your items. You can't use your sword and shield, obviously, but you can still use your boomerang and arrows. You can turn some items into stuff that will help your boat. And even though the sailing can get a bit dull, there's submarines on the island, on the Great Sea, where you can get more treasure. There's a lot of treasure charts to get. You can get treasure, you can get heart containers, you can get more rupees. There's a lot of upgrades you can do for items as well. You can get more bombs for your bomb bag. Your magic meter can go up. You can get more arrows. Your rupee wallet can go up to, I'm pretty sure, 5,000 rupees, which is, I think, the highest at the time this game came out. And that's very useful because later in the game, the character Tingle is in this game, but later in the game, you need Tingle to decipher Triforce charts to get the shards of the Triforce to get back to Hyrule. But it costs a lot of rupees to get them deciphered, so make sure you upgrade your wallet in this game. The dungeons, for the most part, I would say the dungeons aren't too hard. I think the two that I struggled with the most was the first time I did the Forsaken Fortress, because you got to use a lot of stealth. When you're thrown into the Forsaken Fortress, you don't have access to your sword most of the time because your sword falls as you are catapulted. And while you can take some enemy items and you can use it against enemies, which I think is a great addition to the game, there's also some where you need your sword to fight enemies, at least at that part of the game. And the Moblins who are guarding the Forsaken Fortress, you can't fight them just yet. You have to wait to fight them. And if they catch you, you're thrown in a cell. And in some of the hallways, a Moblin might be going the opposite way, but another Moblin might be heading the same way you're walking, and they can catch you walking when you're in your barrel. So the stealth can be a bit tricky in this game, particularly the beginning. The beginning can be a bit frustrating. And you do go back to the Forsaken Fortress with the Master Sword, and you can take on these enemies. So if you're trying to get certain things in the Forsaken Fortress, I would wait until the second time you go to the Forsaken Fortress, just to save you the frustration and sometimes anxiety of the stealth missions on the Forsaken Fortress. We gotta make sure you take on those headlights. The second dungeon that I think was the trickiest was the second to last one, the Wind Temple. And I do enjoy this temple. There's a lot to do in this temple. But again, because there's a lot of rooms to go in. There's a lot of puzzles you gotta solve. But overall, like even though the dungeons, no matter how easy or difficult they are, I enjoy all the dungeons. Um, the boss fights, I wouldn't say the boss fights are that hard. I think the boss fight that I struggled with the most was the Tower of the Gods boss fight, and that was the first time I played the game. I remember it took me a lot of tries to get past that boss. But for the most part, I do enjoy the boss fights. Each boss has their own distinct theme, where Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, the boss fights had the same theme for the most part, with the exception of the final boss, the game's main antagonist. But in here, each boss has their own theme. My favorite one is Mulgara's theme from the Wind Temple. That's also my favorite boss fight in the game, but that has my favorite theme. I love the theme songs in Wind Waker, from the Great Sea theme to the Dragon Roost Island theme, the Forsaken Fortress theme. I think the game has great themes. Even Hyrule Castle, when you're in Hyrule Castle, I love the theme to that as well. And there's some hints of other themes from other games. There's a bit, for example, Windfall Island. There's a little bit in there that reminds me of the Kakariko Village from Ocarina of Time, which I think there's some nice references to Ocarina of Time in this game that kind of gives you hints as to where certain locations were when in Ocarina of Time that are now in Wind Waker. Obviously, see the Forest Haven is the Kokiri Forest. You do see some tribes, by the way. You also see some tribes evolve. For example, the Zora tribe have evolved into the Rito people, who are now more bird-like people that are delivering mail that are flying around the Great Sea. The Kokiri have become the Kororks. So now they went from these human-like children that were children forever to these little tree-like people who have leaves for faces. There's a few Gorons in here, and they're very significant in this trade side quest that you do to help this store in Windfall Island. It's the store you get your sale at the beginning of the game. No Gerudo in this people, but there are some hints of the Gerudo's fate in this game. And that leads me to Ganondorf. I will say this is probably my favorite iteration of Ganondorf so far. I haven't played Tears of the Kingdom yet, so I don't know how that Ganon is yet. Hopefully I get to play Tears of the Kingdom soon. Hopefully I'll get the game soon. But this version of Ganondorf, he actually has motivation. There's a motivation to why he wants to rule Hyrule. He says later in the game that he desired to have the same peace Hyrule has, where his people in the desert only knew death and misery. And he wants to bring Hyrule back to rule it, and that's his wish. And this is a Ganon that, even though I don't feel sympathy for, I understand where he's coming from. And it's not like he's doing evil things to just do evil things to just conquer Hyrule. He wants to do it because like he actually feels bad for his people, and like he desires to have that peace that Hyrule has. Also, I love how Link in this game, he's more expression. He's got more expressions. Most of the time in Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time, I'm not throwing shade at these games because I love these games as well. Link, for most of those games, didn't really have much expression. While in here, you can tell when he's happy, when he thinks something's funny. You can tell when he's sad, when he's angry, when he's being serious, when he's trying to be tough. I think like this version of Link, there's a lot more to his character. Tetra is revealed to be Zelda, as previously stated. And this is another version of Zelda that I like a lot as well. Tetra goes from this tough pirate leader who doesn't really care that much for Link's situation, but then kind of feels bad. And as the game progresses, even though Link is no longer with the pirate crew, she still helps Link in some ways, while it's giving him time to go back to Outset Island and being okay with him taking the bombs, to following Link back to the Forsaken Fortress to help stall the Hemlock King, and even help save Link's sister, and not even charging Link any rupees. And even when she doesn't need to, she goes back and helps Link take on Ganondorf. And then when it's discovered that she's Princess Zelda, she feels bad for all that she's put Link through and even apologizes. And then she helps Link take down Ganondorf in the final fight. And then the two of them go off on an adventure to go find New Hyrule. So I like the character development of Tetra in this film. I like the supporting characters a lot in this game. As the box said, you have some unforgettable characters in this game, and that is true. A lot of these characters do stick out to me in this game. You have the sages, Beetle and Makara. They become the new sages, and there's a song with the Wind Waker, and I'll also get into the Wind Waker as well, where you get to control these characters. And it kind of reminds me of what Majora's Mask kind of did, where when you put on a certain mask, you become a Goron, a Zora, or a Deku, and you utilize those powers. With this one song that you can do, you get to play as the sages in those temples. And so when you're playing as Meadle, you can use your harp the same way that Link uses his mirror shield, and you can also fly. With Makar, you can also fly, and you can plant seeds to grow mini trees that Link can use to progress further in the game with his hook shot, or can help unlock new runes. So I like how even when you're playing as these characters for brief moments, they have their own certain skill sets that helps Link progress to the temple. Speaking of the Wind Waker, it reminds me of how you utilize the Ocarina, but timing is important with the Wind Waker, and you got to make sure that you're changing your Wind Waker up. So, for example, if you're playing a song that has 6 notes, which is very key when you're going into the temples, make sure you're on the 6 notes one, and make sure you're going up, down, left to right, or just leaving it in the center at the right time, because sometimes it can go quick. It's not like the Ocarina where you can go on your own time. But I love how the Wind Waker, it helps you utilize the wind to go further in the game, to go on different islands. The direction of the wind, it helps you control the sages in the earth and wind temples. You can also use the sail to use the Wind Waker to get on certain islands a lot quicker, and it makes it easier when you're sailing. So, for example, if you want to go on an island that's by Dragon Roost Island, you play this one song that can get you there, but you also have to defeat one of the wind gods at a certain point in the game. That's when once you get the bow and arrow, you can easily do that. As far as like the mini dungeons go, the main dungeons are a lot of fun. I like the challenges that they have. One thing I will say, there is some things that are cut in this game. So there were some dungeons that were going to be in this game that weren't in there. There were going to be some islands that were going to be in this game that weren't on there. For example, Fire Mountain, where you get the bracelets that help you get into the Earth Temple, was going to be like this steam island that was going to have people on it, and there was going to be an actual dungeon on that island. But it didn't make the final cut. But you see hints of it or references to it or unused ideas with it in the next big Legend of Zelda game, Twilight Princess, with the Goron Mines. They were going to make the Ghost Ship where you can get either a Triforce chart, or I think in the Wii U version, you get a part of the Triforce when you're going on the quest to get the pieces of the Triforce Courage. I think that was going to be a dungeon, but that didn't make it to the final game. The Ghost Ship is a dungeon in the sequel to this game, Phantom Hourglass, for the DS. Now, I know in Skyward Sword, there's a pirate ship, one of my favorite dungeons in Skyward Sword. So there are some unused ideas. There's going to be an idea where you can travel around Hyrule at the bottom of the sea and then travel right back up, but that obviously didn't make it to the final cut. So it is a short, well, I wouldn't say it's a short Zelda game because the side quests do take a while, but there's really, as far as dungeons go, not counting the first time you go to the Forsaken Fortress, there's really 6 dungeons, not including the first time you go to the Forsaken Fortress in Ganon's Tower. You got the temples, you got the Tower of the Gods, you got the second time you go to the Forsaken Fortress, you got the Forbidden Woods, and you got the Dragon Roost Caverns at the beginning of the game. But having said that, this is still a very fun Legend of Zelda game, and I feel like the things they cut out could have made this probably one of the best Zelda games. It still is one of the best Zelda games, though, even without those dungeons. And as far as the cartoonish animation goes, it doesn't take away from the fact that they had a Flood Hyrule years ago, and that Hyrule's at the bottom of the sea, and there's still a lot of dark themes to that. I would really love to have either a game or even just a book or comic about the Great Flood, about the in between the Ocarina of Time adult timeline and Wind Waker. If there is a book or comic about the Great Flood, let me know in the comments below. I would love to read it if there is. But overall, with Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker, despite certain things that got cut out and the frustrating stealth at the beginning of the game when you go to the Forsaken Fortress the first time, there's never a dull moment with Wind Waker. There's a lot to explore. They utilize the Great Sea very well when it comes to finding treasure and taking on enemies on the sea. You have some of the classic Zelda enemies like the Quiche, the Choo-Choos, the Moblins, the Stalfos appear in this game. You also got some other enemies that are appearing like the Bokoblins. I love the unique boss fights that you get. I love the unique characters in this game. I love the Easter eggs and references to Ocarina of Time to show that this is basically the Hyrule from Ocarina of Time that is now flooded hundreds of years later. I love these versions of Link, Zelda, and Ganon. And I'm going to give Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker an A. This is one of my all-time favorite games. And I feel like even though at the time the cartoon style wasn't all that popular, I think it's helped influence the style of other games. For example, Skyward Sword, yeah, that's not Toon Link, but it still feels more cartoony than the style of Twilight Princess, Ocarina of Time, and Majora's Mask, as well as Breath of the Wild. So I feel like Wind Waker has had a huge impact on how more colorful the Zelda games have become. How the not I wouldn't call it cartoony, but the style of art has become brighter in the Zelda games. And I never played the Wii U version. I don't think there's a lot of huge differences, except that there's not as many Triforce charts, and you can just get the Triforce shard instead of the chart in some places. Let me know what the significant differences of the Wii U version of Wind Waker are. And yes, I highly recommend you check out this game because the graphics, despite how cartoony they are, they hold up a lot better than most of the games that have come out in the early 2000s. And if you haven't played Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker, go play it. If you can play GameCube games, if you have a GameCube or a Wii, go get it. If you have the Wii U, go get the Wii U version of this game. And if this game ever comes out again on the Nintendo Switch or any future Nintendo console, go get this game. It's worth buying. What are your thoughts on Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker? Did you love it? Did you hate it? And what's your favorite Zelda game? Let me know in the comments down below. And I want to thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe already if you haven't. Please share this with someone that loves Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker. And I hope to see you guys real soon. I hope to do more game reviews, whether it's on new games or some of my favorite games. I'm definitely going to be doing some of my childhood games for reviews. But in the meantime, take care, everyone.